Your house arrest has now finally or again been lifted. Should we take that with some grains of salt, or are you actually free to go wherever you like?
So far I've been free to do whatever I've wanted to do. Mind you, I haven't tried to get out of Rangoon yet because I haven't had the time. But I would like to emphasize the fact that I was released because my term of imprisonment had come to an end. It was not an amnesty or anything like that.
This also means that there might accidentally or haphazardly suddenly pop on a new house arrest.
Well, they do that all the time.
Yes.
That's an occupational hazard.
You very recently made a remarkable video statement which was broadcasted during the Cinema for Peace Gala 2011. And in that speech you said something that kept crossing my mind ever since. It's, I quote, "We would like people to understand that self-sacrifice is not a waste. There are those who say that self-sacrifice is foolish, it is meaningless, but it is through the cinema that we would like to convince the world that it leads somewhere. It leads to a better, happier, safer world for everyone." What is to be understood by self-sacrifice?
I suppose it simply means putting others above yourself. That you sacrifice yourself for an idea, for a community, for a people, for a nation. Sometimes people sacrifice themselves for their families, for someone they love. But I don't think that these... I myself don't like to use the sacrifice with regard to what I do. I get very uncomfortable when
yes,
people...
Yes, I know. That's why I specifically didn't want to
talk about the sacrifices I've made, because I don't consider what I've done a sacrifice in any way. It was a choice I made. I've always emphasized that. But there are people, for example, there are members of the NLD who are put into prison for years and years, and their families suffered tremendously as a consequence, but the families also backed them up. And for some, this might be considered foolish. What are you getting out of it? I've actually been told that people, their old friends or members of the family ask them, what are you getting out of this? You're getting nothing out of this. But it's not like that. But for example, they may see this man as getting nothing, but for us, his colleagues, we get a lot out of his actions. We get strength, we are inspired, and we feel that it's worth going on. So something always comes out of sacrifice. And I think all these little somethings put together become something very big and powerful.
There are over 2,100 political prisoners who, in a way, what they do is to sacrifice themselves in order for something bigger. Those are very dear to your heart. Why are they so crucial, these 2,100 political prisoners?
Because they did what they thought they should do in spite of their fears. They continue to do what they thought was right. And that is why they matter a lot to us. That is why they're an inspiration.
Freedom, equality, dignity. In the West, and also for me, they have gradually become almost abstract concepts in the West, philosophical concepts. We've taken our freedom for granted, like breathing. It's normal, it's natural. I sometimes believe we can't appreciate the value of it anymore.
Until you lose it.
Exactly.
If you were strangled, you'd certainly value breathing.
Yeah. Do you think that we have lost the sense of freedom in the West, even just because we have become the freest part of the world?
You've started taking many things for granted, but I think although it's very fashionable these days to go in for a bit of West bashing or Western bashing or whatever, I think there's a lot of good still alive in the West and will be kept alive because of certain values and because of the fact that they are practicing democracies, which may make people open to many different voices.
What is it to you, freedom?
Freedom means that you are able to do what you know is not harmful to others, but what you want to do in security. If we must put it very, very simply. Because of course, if you want to go and murder somebody and you're not allowed to do that, then you can't say that you're not free. But if what you want to do is not harmful to anybody, it's just something that you want to do. You want to go and talk about your ideas as to what a government should be like. then I think you should be able to do that in security. As I can't remember who it was who said this, but I've always liked it. It's not freedom of speech we're asking for. What we're asking for is freedom after speech.
Can there be an actual political effect of purely writing poetry?
Yes, of course. When I was released from house arrest, just to give you a very concrete example, the first time I met the public at the gate of my house, somebody handed me some flowers and I put one in my hair. And immediately they took two lines from a poem of a very, very famous poet. It just means he's still wearing flowers in her hair, but it's to talk about endurance, to be able to survive against, in the face of many difficulties. But it's not about, it's about a flower that managed to survive.
Yes, and can you reach more by being a politician than by being a poet?
I think in the short run, yes.
Yeah.
But in the long run, that's not necessarily so. Of course, there are politicians who continue to reach out to people centuries after they're dead, but then there are poets who are like that too.
Seeing what is happening in the Middle East at the moment, does it bring back memories of 1988, 2007, maybe even 1996?
Well, 2007 I was under house arrest, so I didn't really see anything of what was going on. 1988, yes and no. It was not quite the same thing. As I keep repeating ad nauseum, the greatest difference, of course, was the Burmese army fired on the people, whereas the Egyptian army didn't. Now in Libya, it's a different case. Half of the army seems to be firing on the people, and perhaps half are refraining from firing on the people. So the three situations are different.
You've been a visionary in your sayings. Your world-famous slogan, "There will be change because all the military have are guns." They've proven to be right so far for a large part of the Middle East. Why not for Burma? There are more parallels.
There are some parallels. I was asked that question recently on a radio program, and they asked me what was the difference between Egypt, Tunisia, and Burma. And I said the simple answer is I don't really know. Is it something to do with culture and tradition? Is it something to do with experience, historical experience? Is it something to do with how open the society is to different views? And I'm rather inclined towards the last answer. I think Egyptian society has been much more open to views from all over the world. It has a wider vista than we had back in 1988. We're talking about Egypt in 2010 and comparing it to Burma in 1988. And it's not just Facebook and Twitter. Burma in 1988 had been under the one-party Burma Socialist Program Party rule for about 26 years. We had been cut off from the rest of the world. So it would be natural for the Burmese army to be much more narrow in its outlook than the Egyptian army of 2010.
Has a younger generation stood up so far, or has it calmed down in a way? Are there still idealistic younger people?
I think the younger generation are more proactive now than ever before. I'm not talking about 1988. 1988 was a general uprising. Everybody took part, great-grandfathers to small babies in their mother's arms. But I'm thinking about Burma 7 years ago, before I was put into my last period of detention. Then the young people were not so involved in our movement. But on my release, this is one of the nicest surprises I came across, that there were more young people who were interested in what they were doing, and not just interested in a passive way, who were prepared to play an active part, to demonstrate their interest in different ways.
There is a documentary, as you know, Lady of No Fear. There is one question that one of your friends and colleagues, Peter Carey, I believe is his name, was asking you, looking right in the camera, if your life was able to be reeled back 20 years, what would you like to see different that was done?
Well, people keep asking me the question, and I have to say very, very simply that I have trained myself not to have regrets of any kind, because according to Buddhism, that in itself is a demerit, if you like. You do not indulge in regrets. So I allow myself only very minor regrets, such as not having paid greater attention to my music teacher and so on.
In what way do you differ from your father, you think?
I think people still see me, and I'm very glad that they see me as my father's daughter, because I would never deny the fact that I'm here where I am because I'm my father's daughter. But apart from that, I think they see me also as somebody who's different from my father, which is the right way to approach it. They trust me as they trusted my father, and that I think is the most important thing.
And having become an icon, just like him, is
Well,
that
I have to say I don't like the word icon.
I know, I don't like it either.
It's like sacrifice. But I think what the word that makes me most uncomfortable, number one, is saint. I'm no saint. And the second word that makes me uneasy is, well, I think the sacrifice and icon are a tie for second place. I don't like to be looked upon as an icon, because an icon is a symbol. And I just think of myself as a worker. I work. I make an effort to achieve democracy for Burma. I work all the time.
So if people regard you as an icon, you don't consider it a blessing,
I'm
but a
a
handicap.
working, I'm a worker. And icons, as you said, are still. And just they stand still, and that's a job done, but I can't do that.
Well, I'm happy that you can go out now to prove to the people that you are real and that you have the right to change and to live.
But icon is not a Burmese word, you know.
No, it's a Western concept. Or
So I
is
don't
it-
think the Burmese see me as an icon. I think they see me as somebody who is prepared to move for them, to struggle for them.
Mhm.